The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo from the 19th century shaped the Rio Grande Valley into what it is today. Cameron County Historical Commissioner Jean Fernandez shows us how the roots are still impacting the valley even hundreds of years later in tonight's Throwback Thursday.
Somebody told me that I look like I just stepped off of a riverboat. Well, I did, because no matter that we have the 21st century behind us now, let's go back to the 19th century, and specifically to the year 1848. And that was the time of the signing of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which really gave this land open to colonization. The structure behind me here was one of the first solid brick buildings that were built in what was known as the township of Brownsville. It was finished in 1852 as the Town Hall Market Square. In order to get a true picture of what went into the making of the birth of Brownsville, we have to go back into the year 1781. And that was the year of the formation of the Espiritu Santo Grant. The Espiritu Santo Grant covered a land area of 250,000 acres, all the way from the river to the Arroyo Colorado. That land was given to José Salvador de la Garza by the King of Spain. Now, there was very, very little settlement by what you would call Western man or European colonists in this part of the country for a very good reason, as prior to the establishment of Brownsville. Matamoros was here in about the area of 1821, going on up into the mid-1820s and the late 1820s. And this portion over here was designated as pasture lands for the Villa of Matamoros. Then when Matamoros started going under the power of the Republic of Mexico, then there became problems as to the land ownership over here, because Matamoros had the right then to incorporate lands, to expropriate lands within a certain distance from its town square. Those encroached upon the original Espiritu Santo Grant, and that was this portion right by the river. And there was a great confusion, because a lot of the people that were involved in the Mexican-American War thought that it was similar to other conquests by military victory in the United States at the time. That was not true. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo allowed for the pre-existing Spanish land grants and the ownership thereof. So therefore, there was no conquest by war here. When General Taylor came in this area in 1846, that's when the battle began in order to establish what was called a hard border for the United States. Now, there was precedent for that, because in the land ownership of this region, this was originally part of the Louisiana Purchase lands that were held by France. In those documents, it clearly states the Rio Grande as the border separating it from New Spain. Also, there was a mention of the Rio Grande as being the hard border by treaty after the Battle of San Jacinto. It was taken care of and established by General Taylor coming back in, and the war between Mexico and the United States took place, and then it was firmly established that this land was part of the United States, part of Texas and part of the United States. Land was trading hands by the second in this part of the country. They had to establish, though, the difference between the old New Spain land grants and the new Republic of Mexico land grants in the area. Then the next bright shining star on the horizon was the coming of the railroad, 1904. That was what firmly planted South Texas into a growth mode, because it gave us transportation in and transportation out of all our agricultural products and everything that went into the building of cities. Brownsville was going on in a heavy growth period about the time between 1904, the coming of the railroad, and the start of the First World War. But let's just step back just a moment there. 1910 was the time of the emergence of the Mexican Revolution. Well, Brownsville was center front stage on that development, and the military post here was activated again, and there was all kinds of hustle and bustle and commerce at the time of the Mexican Revolution, and then going on into the First World War. What we see here now is the result of so much effort by these people that came to colonize, to live, and to build their commerce, and the rest is history. For KVEO News, I'm Eugene Fernandez.